All right. Hello, everybody. Alyssa, you're back.
Yay! Hi guys.
Hi,
Uh,
Alyssa.
how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, good,
It's
good.
Friday. Woo!
It's Friday, casual Friday. Everybody's casual. It's all
Yeah,
good.
well, I feel I should have worn a colorful shirt.
I
Yeah. Oh
know.
man,
At least we all
let's
have
flame
team
it.
glasses. We're not all team
Yeah.
hoodie, but that's okay.
Yes. Yeah, we had a little
Yeah.
discussion before we started recording. We all had to wear our team glasses.
There you go. It's cold. It's too hot for a hoodie here. I don't know. I was
Yeah.
wearing a sweater earlier, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I should change into shorts. That'd be cool.
Fab also
All
told
right.
us
So we
stay on
started
subject.
off topic. That's really good.
I was gonna say, yeah,
I was like,
Fab
let's
tells
stay
you
on
to start
topic.
on topic,
Now we're
and you're
talking about
already off
sports.
topic. It's your fault, Fab.
And now we're talking about apparel. Not
All
ideal.
right. All right.
I think we should talk about the jingle, the intro jingle.
No, we've talked about it before. It's
It's a good
cool.
one. It's
Paul,
good.
you did a good job.
It's good.
All right. Let's talk lead generation and lead qualification. Obviously, it's a big topic, so we can see where we want to head with it. And obviously, it's, I think, increasingly what people feel marketing is, right? It's like, and that's how marketers have like more recently, obviously depending on your time span, have like kind of justified what they're doing. Like we're part of revenue, we're generating leads, we're qualifying leads, we're sending sales the best leads possible, and the rest is just kind of like tossed a bit aside to like the stuff we have to do, like our new logos and all that stuff. So it is an important topic. And I don't know where you want to head it off. I know, Paul, you had a question for specifically for SMBs and their lead generation. So maybe we can kick it off with.
Wow, I get to. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Fab. So my question, and we briefly touched upon this in the past, and I think, Alyssa, I want to hear you say it again, because lead generation for a lot of people means a lot of money. It's a scary world. It's, oh my God, I'm going to have to dump a lot of money into something I don't know it's going to work. I know nothing about advertising. I know nothing about marketing. Here I am, an SMB who wants to, bring in some interest to my business, and I'm afraid, and I don't want to spend a fortune. And you said,
You don't have to. There are tons of no cost, low cost lead generation options that I think a lot of small business owners and medium sized business owners too don't take advantage of as much as they could and should before they go right into, oh, I need to find like an SEO digital ad agency to help me get leads. And that's kind of the last place you should go after you have a strategic plan in place and after you have exhausted all of your no cost, low cost options that are already running actively for you. Then you can say, okay, now we're going to up our game a little bit more. These leads are working for us, but they're not quite as big or enough as we want. And then you can look into very well thought out strategic ads.
okay, so
Right.
what are the no
So,
cost or low
but
cost?
before we hop into that, I wanted to say, because like Paul and I actually were talking this morning, like unrelated to the show, and about lead generation. And I said, like, because there's a big part of it, which I find also people forget, and that's what do you do after you've generated the lead, right? Like a lot of people are like, hey, we'll do a ton of ads and we'll put up a landing page. And I've seen that so many times, right? Leads come in and salespeople don't know where to find them. They're not notified. They're being assigned to the wrong, like some old salesperson that doesn't work at the company anymore and stuff like that. And I feel like I like what you're talking about, the free, because it allows you to work on kind of the lead transfer, lead qualification while you're at it, but all the things that have to happen after you get the lead, quote unquote. So on that note, yes,
Yeah.
what are these? What are these free low cost?
I did a really bad drawing one time on the Miro board with one of my clients. They're amazing. I love them. But we were talking about, not even about, I just love them. And they appreciated my hideous drawing on the Miro that I freehanded with one of the pencils in a Miro. So it looked ridiculous.
Nice.
But the idea is that, let's call your marketing sales machine has multiple parts. So the main part of the machine is the funnel. And in the funnel is exactly what you're talking about, Fab. It's your customer journey experience. So it's everything from the lead coming into the machine to the experience they have with the different departments, with your different sales teams, with your account management, with your business development team, whatever that looks like internally in terms of that customer journey, to a signed client. And that's how they pop at the bottom of the funnel and ta-da, you have a client. Great. But lead generation is what you're doing to feed the funnel. So they're two separate things. And so we're talking today about lead generation. So it's what are you doing to pull people into the funnel as quote unquote leads? And it's important too within an organization to define the definition of a lead to a prospect to an opportunity, right? There's lots of verbiage you can put around that person as they go through your machine. So the whole team needs to be on the same page about what that means and when that person gets transferred to which department and what they're calling them. So that's separate, but let's call them leads for now. Or, you're connecting with your ideal prospect, your target, and they're getting hooked in however you're hooking them with your strategic marketing plan, and you're bringing them into the machine. So lead generation is really what I think of as a strategic marketing plan. So we'll talk more, I think, if it makes sense to you guys, more inbound than outbound, because outbound is a little bit more sales oriented. I see outbound is happening within the funnel a little bit more, and more from a business development perspective versus marketing inbound leads.
Right. Fully agree.
Okay. Again, definition's important to understand. Like, okay, what are we talking about? How are we calling it? So in terms of no cost, low cost options, there's a lot of ways you can go. One is, first and foremost, making sure the mothership, and we've talked about this, that your website is optimized to be a sales funnel for you. So there's no point in driving traffic to the mothership to book a call, to book a discovery chat, to do whatever, if that website is not serving you well. In that, when your leads get to the mothership to learn more, it's saying the wrong things. It's no longer attracting them. It doesn't make sense to them because there's a disconnect between what you're putting out there in terms of lead generation and what they're hitting when they come to your home base. So that's the first most important thing. The second piece is considering all of your different marketing initiatives you have going on out there. So one way that you can leverage the website in terms of low cost, no cost marketing optimization is through SEO optimizing. And there's lots of really simple ways you can do that to make your website work harder for you from a Google search perspective. Things like making sure all your H1, H2 headers on that website are getting picked up by the algorithm and they account for your keywords. So when you have a prospect searching for the service or product you offer, make sure you have a list of those things that they're likely going to be searching for, and make sure that your H1, H2 headers on your website include those words and those terms. That will make sure that when they're searching, they're more likely to find you via Google search. The other piece is meta tags. It feels like an obvious thing, but I think a lot of good web developers will remind you to create these. But a lot of times when your website's developed, they're just taking copy from whatever page and then dumping it as a meta tag. So it often doesn't offer a really effective hook in terms of getting your target interested to click on your website. And a meta tag, for clarity, is what shows up in the description underneath each of your pages of your website. So if I'm searching, fractional CMO, Alyssa comes up, I want that little blurb to be something that hooks you and makes you want to click on my page. If it's just some random meanderings from the middle of a content block in your website, it's not going to serve you well. And the algorithm also doesn't like it too because it won't have keywords. So those are just two really simple ways you can optimize your website, again, for free, and it can make a big difference. Another quick Google point, just to give one more idea, is sign up, and it's amazing how many businesses have not and do not do this as a Google business. This is not Google Analytics. This is completely different. And I think we've addressed this maybe a little bit before, but I'll reinforce it. Go on Google, sign up as a Google business, register. You will get via snail mail a little card in the mail that gives you your code. You put that into your Google dashboard and you become a Google business. This allows you to be visible on the right-hand side when someone does a search as an actual business. You get the little Google map, you get your hours, a descriptor of your business, imagery that you want to post there. And it also allows you to do free posts. And that's huge too, because much like social media or LinkedIn, if you're already doing a post in your social media strategy, make sure that post gets copied as a Google post. It literally operates just like social media does. Maybe no one will see it, but the algorithm will. And it also serves you really well to keep your website relevant and fresh in the eyes of the algorithm. So when people are searching your primary keywords, you show up on top pages.
And I should say, I like the Google My Business aspect, or I don't know if they still call it Google My Business, but anyway, they used to, is because even for me, like I remember implementing these like a long time ago at small companies, and a lot of like, because a lot of the verbiage that it used to be was around like more retail oriented, right? Like the business hours and stuff like that. Well, I'm always available. Like there's no real business hours. I don't have a physical location. And I find like that often prevents people from first not knowing about it, stops them from not doing it. But then there's also this kind of like, oh, well, I'm not a shop, I don't need this, but it's not true. Or I don't accept people, right? I work from home. Like I don't have I'm not expecting any foot traffic to come in. But it doesn't matter. There's a lot of ways you can optimize your profile as a consultant, whether you're a small or medium firm, and you're not expecting foot traffic to come in. There's still a lot of things you can do because it does help you just your presence in Google when somebody's searching for, voice over IP phones or whatever, and then you're popping up, even though you're not expecting them to come in and buy it in the store, they could still like contact you. They can still chat with you, like call you, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Especially given the real world now where lots of service-based B2B consulting businesses don't even have an office. Like there's no office. So, you have to, you exist only virtually. So you are a virtual store, you are a virtual business. So to your point, exactly, Fab, you're legit to be there.
But you don't need that physical location. I think, I don't know the exact verbiage,
you
but you can
say
that.
Like mine just says Toronto, for example.
Yeah.
Like I don't say my address. I work in my attic. This is my house. So I'm not putting that up there on Google, but I can just say Toronto. So you have an area of like.
Yeah. And you can also write like the territories that you work in, right? Like you could say like, I could work with clients in France, or I could work with clients in the United States or whatever, or in Canada. You can say so that your search, your box or whatever, your profile could potentially show up in those areas as well.
Yes.
Even though you're not physically located there.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you do that? Can you have areas all over the world? Like,
Mine says France and Belgium, or is often, like indicates France and Belgium for sure.
Yeah. And there's probably SEO work to be done to actually get that showing up in France and Belgium for a target. So that's a whole separate beast, which is interesting because the chat I had yesterday with the Toronto Board of Trade, I was presenting there, and they were talking about exporting businesses and working globally. And it is a bit of a different beast to get visibility digitally in another country if you're operating in one country. So sometimes there's value to actually make multiple websites with a .org or a .net or a .uk. So you have a country-specific website, and then you're also having a presence there that shows up in the algorithm because it's very geo-targeted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. If for other like no cost, low cost lead generations too, I like to think about low-hanging fruit when I first work with clients as well. So we think about where do you get most of your business? Where does it come from? And then how can you further tap into that resource? Again, often people don't think about it. It's considered kind of more business development, but really from an SME perspective, business development is marketing. So what can you do to really maximize that and consider it a marketing tool? So really, it sounds crazy, but you're better off taking some old clients out for coffee than you are to do paid advertising. Because truly, that's actually probably going to generate more business for you far more quickly than putting a generic ad out there into the virtual universe and hope someone, is somehow inspired by it and clicks to discover more. So there's lots of ways to tap into that low-hanging fruit too that I think business owners sometimes forget or don't think to maximize.
Yeah, and I like that because it's definitely true, and it's also, and I realize like we're kind of getting to that marketing sales, element where we're kind of like blurring the lines there, but it's also, ensuring that in your sales and your customer service or your service process, like after you've started working with the customer, that you've identifying points where it makes sense to ask for a referral or a testimonial or things like that, so that you're not just, I sign them and we'll work with them and then goodbye. It's kind of like, how can I then leverage what I'm doing with them so that we can like generate more business as well?
Exactly. And all the more reason for larger organizations for the marketing and sales team to work really well together. So it's like, hey, we could do ads, but like if you guys are willing to spend X amount of time, if we give you some content to say, or we give you some messaging, maybe you give them some interesting piece of marketing you're working on. Maybe you're working on a white paper, or you've done a really interesting blog post, and you give that to the sales team to say, hey, maybe you can utilize this as an in to have a chat with someone. So you can help each other out in that regard by marketing, providing some materials for then the sales team to feel more equipped and comfortable in reaching out.
So thanks. I have a question related to lead qualification and lead generation. So I know, you've worked with a lot of businesses, and obviously you've helped them develop a lead generation strategy and get things going. But I want your opinion on this. Do you find companies in general, whether it's SMBs or even large enterprises, are they having a harder time just generating leads, or is the difficult time really coming from the actual lead qualification? Where does it fall apart? Fab and I have said this. We've all said this. Sales complaining about bad leads. Is it because we're not attributing what the true name of the lead is? A lead doesn't mean it's something you're going to close, but it means something you have to explore. So tell me a little bit about your take on that, Alyssa. I'd really like to hear you.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, we'll call them bad leads, but like not effective leads, non-lead leads, really come from poor foundational positioning and market and branding, to be honest. So it's not understanding your ideal target. It's having multiple targets. It's trying to capture a big net to get all the fish, when really you need to just be speaking to your primary big fish target. When you're really directed and specific and very clear on who you're talking to, other people fall by the wayside because you're not speaking to them.
Yeah.
So I think the heart of good marketing comes from a deep understanding of that. And I actually did an Instagram blabby blab. I'm starting to try to get better at those, about target research, because a lot of companies do target research and they think, oh, great, it's out there. Everyone knows to do target research. You figure out their pains, you find out their problems, what's their big issue. And then they do that and they list. So, there's this, the messaging out there. Okay, then you list the problems back to them. So they think, oh, good, you understand me. Those are all my problems. Yes, yes, yes. And then you just barf your solutions at them. Okay, great. I have A, B, and C for you to fix this problem. You're missing a huge messaging window there. That is actually the only thing that these people care about. And individuals have a really tough time connecting the problems with your solutions and the impact that makes on their reality. So you need to spell that shit out for them and say, these are your problems. I know them. I'm not going to dump them on you because you know your problems. But what I am going to do is use that insight to create a really amazing impact so that I can tell you how your life will become significantly different and better as a result of working with me. And that's impact. And I think impact is the most important thing in messaging, to make sure that you're not only connecting with the right target, but you're also saying the thing that they're going to hear and say, oh yeah, I would like that, please. Yes, I would like my life to become that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're really overlapping there, because in being consultative, it's all about that, right? It's about understanding your prospect or your lead's potential, understanding their issues or what they're trying to achieve, and connecting the solution to something that means something to them, and not just, like you said, I love your words, barfing out a bunch of solutions that they can't connect the dots on. So
yeah. And sales is brilliant at that. Like you're so good at that, Paul. Like even in the chats we've had where you've shared the work you do with clients, like it's very clear in a nuanced conversation, you can get that out of them, and then you can figure out an impact quickly. But the problem is when you're a marketer and you're a business owner and you're thinking broadly, you're not having that nuanced conversation, but it's really important that you still figure it out. So like even talking to your sales team by saying, hey, like, what do you find is the most common impact that we're making on our clients? And then you use that. And you can use the insights of your target to find out their goals, problems, fears, but you've got to figure out that impact that you make. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier to do in a sales conversation that is for marketers, and marketers forget that that's important.
Yeah. And I find like the most insight I've ever seen was like, or I've ever received, is either physically when that was a thing, sitting, like I remember when I was in marketing, I would just physically like take my laptop and go sit in the sales area, department, and just listening to them on the phone, and then like asking them, hey, can I hop onto your next demo or your next call or whatever, just as a silent listener. And now there's like better tools. There's like Gong. There's like so it's conversational intelligence. There's all that stuff that you can like record. And I think, but I still feel the ideal is like if you can actually sit down, like, can I talk to customers, right? And that's where leveraging kind of their post signing, like can our marketing team be part of our kickoff call to see like why you onboarded and blah 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 and all that stuff. I think that's and you're completely right. Most marketers and for some reason business owners also like have this disconnect. They're like, they know what problems they solve and pains they solve, but somehow they get to this I must feature dump everything.
I get it, right? Because if you're excited, let's say you've heard a bunch of problems and you've invented some kind of solution that makes sense for a lot of people. Well, you get caught in the excitement of what your machine or your service or your product does, and then you kind of forget the problems because your machine's so great, right? So I have this vision of a graph in my head. So I have a vision like you're doing TV advertising because you've invented, I don't know, some amazing what was that movie there with Jack Black, the incinerator poo thing that would make the poo disappear, and it was for everyone. So you had this dog and you'd spray it and it would disappear. It was this hilarious comedy, and then all these terrible things start happening anyway. So all that to say though that when you're really doing mass marketing and your product's good for everyone, you're not even worried about the pain points. Like everybody can use it, right? And you're not even making the connections because it's great. But a lot of us have that approach. Like we're thinking, well, our product's always like that. But really when you get into it and you have to understand, and then that's where you get to more specific things and you get into a point where it's really becoming a conversation with an individual about their objectives rather than the fanciness or the sexiness of your product. Everyone thinks that their product or service is like the iPhone, like, everyone's going to want one and everyone should have one and it's amazing. But really,
and then people underestimate the marketing budget that Apple has to sell their products.
And even if they had the budget, they would probably just, fail miserably because it's not one of those good for all products. So I think people have a wrong impression of what marketing does for a specific service of something that's very incisive where you're trying to help someone with their objectives rather than just trying to push a fancy object that you think is good for everyone. I don't know if that made sense, but
no, it's true.
There's a big difference.
I do want to hop in though and say something like compared to what you like when you first asked your question, Paul, is it like kind of a marketing thing? Is it like a definition thing? And I think Alyssa, obviously you're completely right. Like the more you understand your customer, the more your messaging can be on point and less about feature dumping and more about this is how your life could be and stuff like that. But there is also a definition thing. Like I see it a lot, especially in startups where the sales process has to be quite efficient and stuff like that. And there's kind of this velocity element that they're looking into, but there has to be an understanding of what's a lead and what does a qualified lead mean? Like what's expected of you. Sure, this person thought that, hey, this blog post was great. Like this spoke to me. Like I want my life to be like that. But it doesn't mean that they're ready to buy at the end of the day either, right? There has to be some sort of an understanding as to what you need to do, like Mr. and Mrs. Salesperson, after that lead comes in. You can't expect it to necessarily. Sometimes they'll close very quickly. Sometimes like you hit the nail on the head, like second zero and they're sold. But sometimes there is that long process that goes.
Yes, that sales. Yeah.
100. That is the machine. Like that's the funnel, and that funnel has lots of steps, especially in a B2B or service-based business. And it's interesting because I think marketers almost always want to dump, to your point, both your points, all the features, like all the things, and all the things get uncovered later. But what really matters is that hook, and the hook needs to be simple and clear and succinct and fast, like a hook, and pull it into the machine, right? And then once they're in the machine, then it's and here's so much more, and But the other piece I think is really important in terms of lead generation and to, again, get a qualified lead, it's two parts. It's the impact, which can't be a generic garbage impact either. Like, we'll make you money, we'll make you happy, we'll make joy. Like, it has to be something, you know, someone can bite off and chew and sort of believe. And it goes with my sandwich board kind of analogy on the street, where you have that impact that you're putting on your sandwich board. But then the next step is actually giving us proof of life, proof that you can do this. How do you make this happen? And what makes you a little different and better at doing that? And I think often in marketing, business owners and marketers themselves forget the how. And it's not dumping all that we do. It's not our offering. It's how. It's our little bit of a secret sauce that makes us different. So with your crazy poo analogy, which is kind of hilarious. So going back to the poo machine. The poo machine is important. You need the poo machine because
the poo disappearing machine. Very important.
Okay, the poo disappearing machine. You will never have to smell your dog shit again because it's overwhelming and it's bad in the summer. Maybe you're doing a summer campaign and specifically, like, it's just so gross. It comes out of their bum and it's just like overwhelming. You never want to pick it up. It's awful. So it makes you want to throw up and faint. And you never have to have that sick, barfy
feeling. A lot of barf stuff going on in our conversation today.
So this I'm trying to be specific. So this is the impact. And people are like, so maybe the biggest fear is the embarrassment of having to pick up the poo. Maybe the problem is they feel like they're going to throw up when they smell it, right? Let's just assume that those are our discoveries. So as a result, you never have to experience this again. How, and this is a bad how, but how there's special universal magic that we've inputted into the machine that makes the poo immediately vaporize, right? Done. So you're saying what the effect is.
It was called vaporize.
I like
vaporize.
We made a product.
You're a genius. You found the name of the product just by thinking. Okay, keep going. I like where you're going here. Go.
So to give a very terrible and gross example, we're saying the impact of that product on someone's life based on our insights about that person, and we're saying how the machine actually does it.
Yep.
And that's from when a service-based business goes out there, they often don't say how, because like, oh, everything's different. Oh, I do a different thing for everybody. I'm a consultant. It's all special. But really, you still need to say like how you do it.
Have you been reading my website?
Sorry.
So if you've been reading my website, no, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm in a goofy Friday move. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, but the how is important, and the how often gets forgotten.
Okay, but Alyssa, so let's say you are a consultant and the how's a little complex and it does change all the time. Like some people, I know some of my clients, I would ask them, so how do you do this? And say, well, it's different every time. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. But
then how do you come up with the different?
Yeah, how do you come up with your how?
Yeah. Hows can be creative, right? So a how is basically just what makes you different and better. So it's a differentiator. And I think a how is a very descriptive differentiator. So my how, for example, if I want to give one of the examples, is I have a background in Fortune 500s, and I also help to grow a small startup. So I put those two learnings together to work for SMEs on their marketing.
Okay.
Right. So that's one how I do it differently and better.
In your toolbox, you've got large enterprise and you've got, startup. You bring them together and you bring those together to help the SMBs.
Yeah, my experience and insights from both those career experiences to be able to be the best consultant that they could want.
Okay.
Right. So that's one example, but there's lots of other ways. So maybe there's a different way. One of my amazing clients has this incredible dashboard, right? They actually put input and analysis. They built an actual platform to help assess engagement, creative engagement, and impact within organizations. So that's how they do it, right? They can say the result is everyone's engaged and all of your employees love working there. Everyone's, drinking the Kool-Aid on board, but how? How do you get them to do that? It's, we actually take you through a specific process.
Okay. So that makes total sense to me. So for example, on my recruitment business, it's like, well, I'm using the evaluation. That's how I do it. And the evaluation is customized to your need. And then for Fab, what would be your how, Fab? Uh-oh.
How? Sorry, my Slack was lighting up on the other side, so I got lost track of the conversation. But my how is, for me, it's let's look at what's going on in HubSpot right now, and let's work with you to evaluate your priorities, and then let's build out a kind of a high level plan to map those out, and by giving us some flexibility to deal with unforeseen requests.
And a how-to could be for you, and I'm making this up, but you are always on the pulse of changes in HubSpot, right? So you could say how. I literally hours a day I spend just updating my knowledge on how HubSpot's changing, so you get real time insight. You're not getting 10 years ago HubSpot. You're not getting 5 years ago HubSpot. I'm on it.
Or 5 minutes. Yeah. And I think, you're right. I mean, my how is also that I do have this decade experience with the platform. And so there's more this intimate knowledge of how the platform functions and stuff like that, which allows me to, and also, how should I say, like my goal, my striving, I don't know, of coming up with like straightforward solutions, right? A lot of people, it's easy to come up with big complex solutions that will cost you thousands and thousands of dollars to implement. I try to be much more straightforward. So that's true.
Yeah. And that's a huge how too, right? A big how is that you immediately quickly digest their business problems, and you're able to, in a more efficient way than a larger consultancy, let's say, put it into action in your company, right? So that's a top line thing. So there's hows that are important. You need to you need to give people reason to believe, right? What's your proof? Prove it to me. Cool. You can do this. Cool. This impact on my life, but like how? And that's often forgotten too.
Yeah, interesting. So hey, I want to touch on something here. I just had it's a dim light bulb, but I just had a light bulb go off in my head. When we're talking about lead qualification, and Fab and I have often talked about this in the past. Sales complaining, marketing complaining, and to me, it's just a communication thing. It's just a semantic thing, right? So if you define what the lead looks like at different stages, and you agree with other departments saying, well, a stage 1 lead is this, and it has these things in it. And marketing says, well, this is what we're looking for. And sales says, okay. And then stage 2, stage 3. And then you go into a point where you say, this is how marketing's going to qualify the lead. And then it's a sales job to further qualify it, to decide whether it's going to, how far in the funnel it's going to go. So am I wrong to say that the big arguments on lead qualification or the disagreements are often due to semantics and expectations being very different, because the marketing team and the sales team have not sat down to actually define what these parameters should look like? Is that a fair? Would you two both agree, or would you disagree? And
go for it. I mean, I would agree, I guess. Yeah, obviously there's a definition thing. I think, and there's definitely a lack of understanding. I mean, I work with a lot of SaaS startups. So, and obviously every type of company has different like issues, I would say. But what I've seen a lot is also unrealistic expectations on sales and marketing teams, which make them quickly run towards bad habits, right? Marketers will just be like, let's just spam everybody on the database. Let's just buy 1 million lists and email everybody because we need like 400 leads a day type of thing. And it's just, and sales is like, well, all these leads are bad. Like we can't work with any, and it's because there's a lot of expectations that's because you haven't set your definitions and your process and looked at what conversion rates look like. And because you haven't spent time doing all the RevOps stuff, right? Like just looking at all those things, you're like, well, sales, we need 40 new clients a day. So then sales is like, well, we need 400 leads then. But they need to be qualified and they're ready to buy. So I think, yes, there's a definition thing, but there's also what I've seen, a company expectation thing, which is often unrealistic, or not often, but when there is an issue, there's often an unrealistic expectation that just drives people to bad behavior and finger pointing and all that stuff.
It's funny because I've been working with a company recently that's sort of has the opposite problem. They have these great leads, they talk to them, and sales is disqualifying them too quickly. So it's it's a very odd thing. Alyssa, what's your take on this? I wanted to hear you too, Fab. Thanks.
It's interesting. I feel like often businesses are missing that linchpin connector. And I'm going to call it, for lack of a better term, business development, because it has to be that person that is able to qualify the leads or disqualify the leads for sales, so sales isn't spinning their wheels with useless leads. And I don't know if that's a salesperson that ends up being the expert at that, or if it's a marketing person. But in working at a small business, a lot of what I did, and many times, was qualifying and disqualifying leads. And I got really good at knowing when someone was kind of garbage. I got really good at knowing when someone was good. I got good at knowing when someone didn't really know what they wanted and to sell them. It's a really interesting role, and it's a very unique job in that the person has to be able to play both roles. They have to be able to market a little bit to understand where that lead's coming from. So they have to have a sense of the marketing that brought them there. And then they also have to have the ability to qualify the lead, right? So it's almost like a lead qualifier that's needed. Literally, that job is for that person to say, and marketing needs to do a better job of making sure most likely those leads are good. So it ends up being a fruitful conversation. And if that lead qualifier can make the sale without even having to go to sales, then you're winning, right? Amazing.
Well, coming from a sales guy, I'd say that lead qualifier has to be a salesperson. If they're doing sales, they're in sales.
I think so too. I think it's better as a salesperson, but I think sometimes a salesperson doesn't want to be dealing with the garbage leads. So it's kind of like it's maybe like that tough middle road, because I think it's really hard for marketing to qualify leads if they're not.
It's not a tendon and it's not a muscle, right? It's that point. It's not marketing. It's not sales. It's that point where they join and one turns into the other. It's like where your muscle joins your tendon. There's a part where it's not muscle, it's not tendon. So you need to have that person that has both those qualities, right? To be able to sell, be the muscle, let's say, and be able to be the tendon, the marketing, where you're still working out whether this is worth it or not. That's really interesting.
You really do, because also if a salesperson is working on commission, they don't want garbage leads, right? They're wasting their time. So it has to be someone. I think of it as a marketer who's good at sales, to be honest. Like, I think that should be the role, because if you're a salesperson working on commission or your job is to get a certain amount, you have a quota, you don't want crap leads, and you shouldn't be wasting and spending your time, disqualifying, qualifying leads, because you're getting paid on that. And that doesn't make sense. So if you're talking about getting in, dirty with like what that person's job really is, I think it should be a salaried person who maybe is really connected to the marketing team, gets good insights from the sales team, and has a sales brain who can take those leads in and then spin them to whichever direction, like dump them out to sales or dump them away or put them in some kind of marketing bucket for like maybe later. Yeah. It's like this little special linchpin person that needs to be able to like spin their head around and know where everything should go and then put that person in the right place.
Yeah.
And I've seen, let's call them an SDR, right? A sales development rep. And you're right. I've seen more and more SDRs reporting into marketing. Earlier on in my career, it was like they were part of sales, and it was kind of like understood you're an SDR, then you became an account executive, and that was your career growth plan. But then what I saw anecdotally was that the problem remained the same, right? Because then the SDR was like, well, the leads are all bad, like that's why I can't send it. So when they became part of marketing, and what I see when they're part of marketing is that those conversations that we were talking about earlier, like marketing having their ear to the ground and listening with this, and having this SDR reporting into marketing, and being part of those weekly meetings or their daily stand-ups or whatever, being like, man, a lot of the people out of our Google My Business campaign are just not a good fit. Like, what's going on? Like, and then realizing like, oh, maybe our ad targeting is off, and obviously I'm talking about later on when you have budget, but it allows you to be closer to marketing because they are
really what it boils down to, and I'm hearing all this, and if you go up to 50,000 feet, is that it's the expectations you have of the people. So if your SDR sits in sales and your expectations are that they close more business, well, they're going to complain about the leads because they can't do what they're supposed to do. And vice versa. So that's why it's good. It's good that like you said, it lives in marketing, because then really their job is to still be qualifying before it's shot off to sales. So the way they're remunerated and what's expected of them is different. They're still weeding. They're still going through the jungle, chopping down the branches to see if it's really the right lead. Where sales job is like, no, give them to me. I got to close them.
Exactly.
So if your remuneration and your objectives are well set for that individual, it really doesn't matter if they sit in sales or marketing, as long as we know, look, your objective is to clean stuff out once in a while throw it to sale or throw it out, and we're not going to punish you when you throw it out. Well, then they won't complain about the fact, like Fab just said, that they're crappy leads because they sit in the sales.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to undermine the value of this role. Like truly, this person should be paid more than most marketing people, and they should be paid more than salespeople. I'm not joking. It's a really essential role, and to find someone who's good at it, I don't want them reporting into marketing. I want marketing to go to them and say, help us make our ship better because you are the liver of this business. Like I want to describe them as that. Literally, they're like detoxing, they're figuring things out. They're an essential element to make the whole sales and marketing machine move well together. And if there are like 3 of these people, they are like a powerhouse that can make.
If the liver doesn't work well, you end up barfing.
You die. You die.
You die. Sorry, I was trying to bring your barfing analogy back in.
I like that. I mean, maybe it affects poo. I don't know.
I don't know what's going on with our Friday talks.
Yeah, we digress. We're not even drinking yet. It's not even noon.
No drinking yet. I agree. But so that's a really interesting perspective, and it's interesting because I think I'm traditionally sales. You guys are more marketing, and I love hearing this because these are all conversations that would have been extremely helpful in the past, in my past world as a leader, and in my past world as part of a company. And today, it's something that I can bring to my clients. And I think we can all bring these things to our clients so that they understand there's sort of a switch point, but that switch point is your expectations of those people as a leader. And if your expectations are wrong, and if you're expecting the marketer to sell, well, then he's going to act like a salesperson. And if you're expecting your salesperson to sell, well, then of course you're going to act like a salesperson. If you're remunerating or commissioning them on products sold and you're giving them leads, well, of course they're going to complain about the leads if they're not good, because you're saying, hey, you haven't sold as much as I want you to. Mm-hmm. Well, no, because your leads are shit. But that's the mindset.
Yeah.
So I love that sort of crossover person,
And I think most marketers don't have that sale. If they're a core marketer, they don't really have that sales edge, right? They don't have that sales insight to be able to be that business development person there, because they think about holistic, high in the sky marketing, bring in leads, general awareness. So that's why small businesses can really grow with this linchpin person, because it's almost like the founder does this job naturally, right? This is what we as founders do all the time. We market, we assess leads, we sell, we discard. The organization then has to work as a single organism in that regard. And I think a lot of like Band-Aid, I think a lot of organizations and SMEs are forgetting this important role. And I think often founders end up still having to do it, and it's wrecking them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Are we wrapping it up, Fab? I see the clock going, and
Fab's got our 5-minute warning. 0-minute warning.
I mean, just one last quick thing going back to the beginning, which is like the free marketing stuff, I think, which we didn't, we talked a lot about the SEO stuff and the Google My Business stuff, but another one that, and maybe that's just me, but is also understanding when you're saying understanding where your leads are coming from. There are the LinkedIns and the Instagrams and all that of this world that we didn't talk about, which media. Is but to me, for example, it's completely unscientific research, but there is a direct correlation between the amount of content I put out and the amount of inbound leads I get from LinkedIn specifically. And I know every business is different. And I think that's a big step that people underestimate a lot and because it is, a different medium, and it isn't a very directed conversion medium, right? You put out a post on LinkedIn, you're not like, hey, contact me to buy my stuff today,
on the sale now for my consultancy package. Yeah.
And so a lot of people forget it because they're like, oh, well, social doesn't work, or it's too complicated. And other platforms are much more competitive, right? Like the Instagrams and all that are much harder to get to stand out than others. But I think it's definitely, that's another pillar that I would, if you're looking into the free, non-expensive, is like just posting content and engaging with people about stuff. Like not a sales purpose, because the sales is going to come, right? Somebody's going to contact you and be like, Paul, I loved what you said about positioning statements. Like I need, my salespeople are crap, right? And then you have like a big conversation about that, even though you never ask them, like, contact me to talk about like sales.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, and
I
that's a
feel
very
like
good
our
point, Fab. And Fab's drilled that into my head for the last 3 years. So whenever I fall behind on creating my content, I feel guilty. Like right now, I haven't done it in a week and a half, and I'm like, oh, damn, I'm not listening.
It's hard.
Mhm.
I'm also very late on stuff. There's a lot of things, a lot of stuff that we normally used to do that I don't do anymore. But I digress. But that's a big one.
We should table this, and we could do a whole podcast on just like social media marketing for
I love it.
mainly service-based B2B business if we want.
I love it.
Can I just ask one last question? And
Yeah.
this might sound very novice, but I'm a strong user of LinkedIn because I have a consulting business and I have a recruiting business, and I'm a strong user of LinkedIn, but I've never used Instagram, and I want both of your opinions on Instagram for a B2B consulting business.
I'm not an Instagram expert by any stretch of the mind. So go for it.
I am not practicing what I preach right now, but it is part of my marketing plan and strategy. I recognize as a consultant or a thought leader, or whatever you want to call me at times, that doing any kind of talks like this on podcasts, doing live speaking events, just like barfing the contents of my brains out at people, serves me well because it gives my prospects a chance to see how I operate, how I think, my insights. So for that reason, I think Instagram is a really valuable platform for us as thought leaders to communicate our thoughts. So when people are creeping us, seeing us talk, finding us on LinkedIn, it's another home base where they can get insight and access to our brains and the way we operate to say, oh, that person I think can help me. So it's not necessarily a real-time connect, but it's a way to pop insights and information so that when people are investigating you, creeping you further to see if they want to book a discovery call or connect, it gives them another platform for them to have access to you.
Okay.
And I see that as a good way for
I'll share my anecdotal thing was when I was more active on LinkedIn and posting some of our podcast snippets on there, I did get a client from Instagram that DM'd me after I'd posted a few things and talking about HubSpot and all that stuff. So it is there. I think with all this content stuff, and you're right, Alyssa, I think we should just have a show specifically for that, is that consistency thing, right? Like if you're going to be on Instagram, then you need to be on Instagram. If you're going to be on LinkedIn, then you need to be on LinkedIn. You can't just post once and hope it works and then come back 6 months later and say, well, LinkedIn didn't work for me. I think that's the big challenge with the social part is that consistency, especially when you're a small business, because you probably don't have a dedicated team. If you have a person that does social, they're probably doing 67 other things anyway, and social is invariably at the bottom of their priority list. But that's a big one that I've seen is the consistency.
So what we're saying is the next time Alyssa's on, we're talking about social media content.
I think that makes sense. And I have some ways that help with efficiency of executing that content too. As a sole proprietor, as a business owner, and you don't have a team, there are efficiencies in how you maximize A, B, and C platforms that you want to be on with your content. So you're not like losing your mind creating content all day.
Okay, cool.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
So wrap it up, Fab. What's that?
We're wrapping it up. Thanks everybody. There's too many takeaways from this episode. What I personally like is just that there are free ways and they allow you to build your marketing approach, right? It's normal that you start with sales because you need revenue, right? But as you're building your marketing, start with free, low cost, because it does help you maybe have that conversation with sales. What is a good lead, which is obviously something you don't have when it's just a sales team. That's my biggest takeaway of this.
Yeah. And my takeaway is there's a lot of barfing and vaporizing going on Friday.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And my takeaway is think differently about the linchpin person on your team that can help you qualify and disqualify leads.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you very much, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.